Hello and welcome to the Women's Network. I'm Elke and I am your host. I want to invite you to a very informative and great show. So for those of you who are not quite settled in and not ready, please jump up and get yourself a pen and a pencil, paper and pencil, so that you can write down some very important information, especially telephone numbers, because you need them. Our subject today is self-defense. Now, I believe we've all been in a situation where we could have used some knowledge of self-defense. We've all been in situations that were kind of hairy and we wanted to scream, yell, or whatever we wanted to do to get out of it, or just run away. Therefore, like I said, please get yourself something to write with, because you want to learn more about self-defense. You want to know where to go, and you want to know just about self-defense in general. I have invited 3 wonderful guests. They will be able to tell us about self-defense, about classes, and what the techniques are, and much, much more. They will have, we will have demonstrations. So, like I said, it's really a very important subject today. Unfortunately, we have to have that subject. I wish I could say, well, we don't need it anymore because we all feel so safe and so great out there in that in the big world out there. But the sad fact is that the statistics speak for themselves. And before we start, let me just read you a couple items that I've picked up. There is a violent crime every 22 seconds in the 24-hour day period in the United States. Now, just think about that for a moment. It's hard to believe. In the year 2000, there were over 15,000 murders, almost 2 per hour. Now, most people think, including myself, it can never happen to me. Well, that's a total myth, and we will talk about our myths later. And one more, because we are women, but this is not necessarily for women, let's talk about rapes. There are 90,187 forcible rapes, one every 6 minutes. That is, to me, it's just impossible to even think of. So we all want to prevent being a victim, and therefore our show today. So without much further ado, let me introduce you to the great people I have who will tell you all about it. Okay, I have with me Veronica Riviera. Veronica, so nice to meet you.
Hi.
Would you please introduce yourself to the audience very briefly, and let us know about your background a little bit.
Okay. My name is Veronica Riviera. I have been with LACAAW for approximately 3 years now. I've been teaching self-defense for about 5 years. I studied the martial art of Tang Soo Do prior to that. And I'm also in charge of the rape prevention education in the metro area of Los Angeles. So I coordinate a lot of the rape prevention education that goes out into the schools, in the community, wherever we're needed, and also community education all around the issues of domestic violence. So that's primarily what I do.
Well, I tell you, I'm so glad I have you here.
Thank you.
And I have with me Yvette Lozerno.
Hello.
Hi, Yvette. Nice to have you here.
Thank you for having us here.
Will you introduce yourself a little bit?
Sure. My name's Yvette Lozerno. I'm with the Los Angeles Commission on Assault Against Women. I've been a self-defense instructor for 4 years now. I've been with LACAAW for 4 years. I've studied the martial arts of Taekwondo, and my position also at LACAAW is the Assistant Division Director for our intervention program. Has to do with our 24-hour crisis line, accompaniment services, and counseling services.
Well, I know we have a lot to talk about.
Yes, we do.
We don't have enough time. So last but not least, I have with me Frank Blaney.
Blaney.
Yes,
thank you.
Frank, it's so nice to have you here. Will you give us the honor and let us hear what you have as your background?
Sure. Yeah, a lot of people are confused sometimes about why a male would want to get involved with what's supposed to be a women's movement, or helping women to fight against violence. But it's an affliction that hurts everyone. And I was a victim of violence at an early age, more times than I care to remember. And so as a result of studying jiu-jitsu, a martial art that I've got a black belt in for 11 years, and hearing about this opportunity to help LACAAW in training women to empower themselves, to be able to maintain that basic right of not being violated, not being hurt, and just helping to equip them with the skills and work alongside the female instructors. It's been a wonderful opportunity for me. I get more out of it than I give.
And I'm really glad you brought Frank to the Women's Network, because I think it's so important that it's not just us, but it comes from every angle.
Right.
And definitely the male figure is involved in it, and especially also in the defense.
Yes.
When we might have to use it, not only being attacked, but and we'll talk about that. But first of all, I want to go to the phrase or the word LACAAW, which I don't know whether the camera can pick it up. It's LACAAW, and it stands for the Los Angeles Commission on Assault Against Women. Now that's a real heavy wording or project or program. Let's talk about it just for a moment before we get into the actual other parts of self-defense. Who wants to give us a little bit history?
I will. Well, LACAAW started in 1971. It was started back in 1971 when a woman was raped on Sunset. She was raped after the assault happened. A few of her friends were trying to get some help, and there wasn't any resources back then as far as counseling or shelters or services for survivors of sexual assault. So they got together and they built up this crisis line, and they started going out to the community and kind of informing the community that there was something that needs to be done about rape prevention and getting the word out that sexual assault is a violent crime. So they started a crisis line out of a garage. So from that garage, it's been built up now to 3 different headquarters. We have our LACAAW Metro office in Los Angeles. We have our Pasadena office that provides services to all the community in the San Gabriel Valley area. And we have a site also in our San Fernando Valley, and that site works with In Touch with Teens, our prevention education for youth at high schools. And
well, it sounds like it's quite a great organization right now, and what a great bunch of strong women, to start this, because this is like a subject again that we don't want to hear about, and there we go into our first one of our myths that women lie about being raped, and it's not so. Can anybody comment on that? What I have here, it says women do not lie about being raped. Rape is the most underreported crime of all. Now, if we had known these agencies are around, we may be able to feel safe of reporting things. So the 4 or 5 women that started it in the 70s were very brave to start something totally against stream.
There's the belief that maybe when a woman says that she's been sexually assaulted or raped, they have this belief that no one's going to believe them. No one's going to take them seriously, and they're just going to judge them for what happened to them. So we don't know. I mean, women are sexually assaulted, and it does also happen to men too as well. But we try to provide services to all women, and children and youth, and some of the rapes that do happen go unreported most of the times, and that's a big issue.
Right, and where is most of our violence? That was such a shocker to me.
I think when we're talking about rapes and sexual assaults, we have this misconception that it happens when you're walking down a dark alley and someone jumps out of the bushes and attacks you. And in reality, what it is most of this happens in your own home by someone that you know or someone that you've had some kind of formal contact with. But we have a society that has this misconception that it only occurs to people who are walking down the alleys and there's a stranger involved.
Yeah. And Frank, you probably can talk about, like, men get raped as well.
Yeah, I think the statistics are approximately 10% of the people that are served by, even by LACAAW, happen to be males, and that points out that oftentimes it's not an issue of sexual attraction. It's an issue of domination and violence and control. And so oftentimes when it's a male being raped, it's not because the person that's doing the rape has some sort of sexual attraction to him. It's to put them in their place. It's the same thing with women too, and that's one of the things that LACAAW tries to put across. There's this, because sexual assault, those two words together are kind of confused, because you think the issue is sex, but the issue is violence, assault, domination, and control.
Right. Well, let's talk about, now that we know, we definitely need self-defending. We need to know how to go about it. I leave it up to you to start as to what is most important. What can we do? Like, what can the ordinary person do? Because we don't want to, and we all know there's karate around and martial arts to a certain degree, but I mean, that's a long-term program. So why don't you just jump in and kind of talk about the most important things and what we should know about? And if you want to demonstrate at any time.
Well, I think it's important to recognize that the way that LACAAW's self-defense is set up, it's a module, and it's set up in three different components, which is the first most important part is the awareness. We want to make sure that people are aware of their surroundings, their environment, listening to our inner voice. We've all experienced that time where we've had that gut feeling of something is going to happen or something looks wrong, and we so often tend to ignore it, when in reality we need to be listening to that. We need to be okay with that, to know that there's a feeling and not to ignore that, to go with it. So I think that one of the most important aspects is awareness, being aware of where you go, who you're with, who you're around, how you carry yourself, how you walk, what message you give out. Many times we're not aware of how we are coming across to other people, and it's very important to be aware of that.
I want to just interrupt you for a moment, if I may. What message you give out? I know, because I have people in my life, and I feel they give out a certain message, and I think maybe it's a good idea to point that out, because I would like people to point out to me if I give off a message that is vulnerable to situations such as attack, assault, or whatever.
It's important to be aware of making sure that you're not coming at, when you're walking across the street, that you're not coming across too aggressive, because then you're almost asking for a challenge, but not too subtle to where you're looking down and not paying attention to your surroundings. So walking in a way where you know where you're at, you're aware of what's around you, and able to recognize anything that's around you. Also being aware of where you park, how you go in and out of your house, just little things like that, just making sure that you're always aware of, if I was approaching my house and something looked different, am I going to be aware of that? Am I going to be ready to not go in my house versus just going in and ignoring it? The second component is assertiveness, and I think that many times women who are assertive are misconceived, and not we're not wanting to be assertive because we're looked bad upon, because in society we're always taught to not be so assertive and kind of do as people say. So that's very important for us to teach, is how to be assertive. And many times we feel that if we can teach women to be assertive, hopefully they will be able to avoid having to become physical with an opponent or an aggressor. So that's another important aspect, is how to be assertive and how to make sure that when you assert yourself, you really mean it and not become too aggressive again as well. And the last component is, of course, our physical techniques. And I think that many times when people call and ask for a self-defense class, they think that a self-defense class is nothing but physical self-defense. And we really want to stress the importance of learning the awareness and assertiveness before you actually get to physical self-defense, because we hope that by teaching you awareness and assertiveness, you'll never have to resort to the physical self-defense. But it's there in case you ever need. It's a tool that you have in your toolbox in case you ever need to resort to it. It's there for you. So we believe in teaching it in a 3-module format for that reason.
What about pepper spray and mace and guns or knives or like carrying something in your pocketbook.
We don't do any weapons training, or we don't encourage people to use weapons.
No, right.
Because they could be turned against you. The mace could be used against you. A gun can be used against you. We hope that when they're taking our class, that women use their bodies to defend themselves. So they have their weapons on their arms, their hands, their legs, their voice, so they have their weapons that they have with them all the time that they can use to defend themselves.
Yeah, well, since we are talking about more so that women's self-defense, are we actually strong enough, and are you going to be showing that to us?
What we're going to show is a couple of techniques that are going to be able to de-escalate a situation and hit to the vulnerable areas of the body. So those have been proven, as we'll see soon, that we're able to de-escalate the situation and be able to get away and not continue the physical fighting, but be able to go to a safe place.
Good. Well, let me just talk to my audience for 1 second. For those of you who are just joining us now, please, I just got a, there you go. I just got a signal, sorry. For those of us who are just joining us now, we're talking about self-defense. So don't think you can handle it all on your own. I think you need a few instructions, and please listen to what's coming up now, because it's very important, because we've all been in these vulnerable situations that we wish we'd known what to do. So let's go back to our guests, Veronica Riviera, Yvette Lozerno, and Frank Blaney from the LACAAW organization, Los Angeles County.
Los Angeles It's okay.
Los Angeles County on Assault Against Women. I'm sorry, I'm going so fast, but I don't want to lose a moment.
I
so
understand.
I want to get back to you real quick, and let's see what we...
Well, Veronica's gonna lead us through certain parts of the techniques, and I'll demonstrate with Frank. Okay.
Should I put my head on?
Yes.
Okay.
So what we're going to do is we're going to have Yvette demonstrate some basic releases.
Ooh, that looks frightening.
So she's going to be grabbed by the hand. She's going to release.
You tend to sometimes push away.
The first thing that women typically want to do is pull away, and this is the normal way. Usually one of the ways that men usually attack is they're going to grab us, and we tend to want to pull away. And the difference with our self-defense techniques is that we actually get close into our attacker to throw them off balance a little bit. She's going to open up her hand to kind of break that grip a little bit. Then she's going to come out on where the thumb's at and break the release. And then she's going to go for another target area. So if she's going to get grabbed by a bear hug, the first thing she's going to do is go and hit him in the groin area. Then she's going to do a stomp to the foot. And that gives another one. Then she's going to come back up in the head. And that'll give her enough to be able to get away from her attacker. She'll be able to hurt him enough to get away from the attacker. Another thing, maybe she wants to do a kick this time. She'll get grabbed from the hand, and she doesn't want to get too close into her attacker. She'll do a kick to the groin area. She'll bring him down. So one of the biggest fears that women have is being on the floor, ending up on the floor. I think that's one of the biggest fears that women have is, what if I'm attacked while I'm sleeping in bed? What if I fall and I'm attacked? So he's going to grab her, take her down, and then we're going to see how she can fight from the floor. No! Notice that she's taking her time, she's breathing. That's really, really important, that she's breathing this whole time. She's not going to try to fight back too hard. She's going to try to wait for the opportunity to get him off of her.
No!
So at this time she's yelling, and most likely he's going to cover her mouth. But now he's actually released her. She stayed really close to him and then hit him back. Notice that she never turns her back and she's crawling out of the situation. I think it's very important to realize that as well, that when we're watching this technique and we're watching the demonstration, that this is something that takes a lot of practice. It takes time to learn. We do offer classes that we're able to teach you how to do this as well.
And our classes to our safe environment.
And our classes are taught in a safe environment, so they're not anywhere where we would just bring people off the streets to fight with you. We'd bring in our trained co-instructors, as like we have Frank here. Another thing that we get asked a lot is, what if I'm being choked? What she wants to do is be able to break his grip, so she's going to put her hands all the way up to her ears and get out. And notice how when we fight back, we are fighting to get away. We're not staying there and becoming aggressive. We are doing it to get what we need to do to get there and get safe and get out of the situation. Are there any?
Yeah, so what I'm seeing is we're talking about resisting versus fighting back. More or less, you should really look at the situation. See what it is.
Yes.
Whether you should fight, stay, or scream, or you should, if you can, have a second for yourself and evaluate the situation.
And notice that when you saw Yvette demonstrating, she was breathing, she was saying no, she was yelling. That kept sending oxygen to her brain. It's very important to breathe when you're showing these techniques. It's also important to assess when you're going to be fighting back an attacker is, where are you? Are there people around you that can hear you? Are you by yourself? What can you do at the given time to make sure that you survive? And whatever you did to survive, you did something right. Just because you didn't break his leg or you didn't hurt him enough, it does not mean you didn't do something right. And I think that many times women believe they did something wrong. And what we want to say is, if you got out of that situation, if you're here alive telling me your story, you did something right.
Exactly. Exactly. Now we only have about 5 minutes left, not even. Let's bring up some very important points that our viewers out there will always remember, and just very brief, because I also want to mention a couple of things. This is not only for women and men, but we also have, which is real important, the disabled.
Yes.
And so about 4 minutes, let's...
We provide classes to children, disabled people that are in wheelchairs or have a developmental disability or, profound disability. No matter what condition you're in, you could definitely do something to defend yourself and get away from that situation. Taking LACAAW self-defense classes that we provide once a month definitely was something that would benefit you and that you could probably use in the future.
And we also have our extended 12-hour class, which allows you to have the ability to come in and practice and learn the self-defense techniques and practice them on padded attackers. And I think that's one of our really popular classes, because you don't always have that opportunity to be able to practice those techniques and see that they do work, and it's in a safe environment to be able to practice those techniques. And we do offer those classes as well.
Great. And you, Frank, do you?
Yeah, I just want to mention something about the comment you made before about, so many women think, I may be too frail, or that guy's, I'm 6'3", about 220 pounds, I'm a black belt. If I didn't have these pads on and Yvette had done any of those moves that she did, I would have been on the ground incapacitated. And that's the thing that's important to understand, is they're not teaching fancy things like you see in the kung fu theater movies, and that gives a lot of misconceptions. Once you hit a person's vital area and they train them, don't stop until this person goes down, that's the end of the story, and you can run.
Right.
So it's a misconception that women, because some of them are smaller, can't take down a man that's larger. That's completely wrong.
Yeah.
And I feel it every time when they're hitting me,
Well, I'm glad you're padded right now, because I sat here and I went like this. But you mentioned one word, vital areas, and that's, to me, that's something really good to know. And awareness, and your surroundings, and don't take your surroundings for granted.
Right.
Correct.
Like you said earlier, it's like violence comes from within the house, from your husband, wife, children, whatever. You know, so I think we should really, the awareness is so important. And then when we are being assaulted, the vital points, how we can fight back. Well, we're coming to the end, and I wish we had more time for more demonstrations, and I would even put that hat on. But I want to thank you so much for coming on the show, because I think it is so important to know at least a little bit about you and about the self-defense, and also get some help as to where we can go. And hopefully the hotline has flashed on the screen a few times. And for the audience, if you want to know more about it, please call the hotline that you've been seeing, or LACAAW, and or call the number at the end of the credits, which is my number, and then I will put you in touch with the organization, because as you noticed, it is so important to know a little bit about self-defense, even if it's just a little bit. So don't let it go. And I want to thank you for joining us. And again, I want to thank you for being here, and the demonstration. And Frank, I hope you're going to be walking out okay, because we want you back. At least I want you back.
That's
and
great,
if there's something new happening, you know, I want to hear about it.
Sure.
Again, thank you very much, and please join us again next time for a great, another important subject. Bye-bye.